Caithness, and I've been having a sense of deja vu, thinking back to when the Noble Earl and I were working on getting a focus on soil health in the Environment Bill Now Act, when the Noble Earl was indeed acting to push his own government in the right direction. I declare my position as Vice President of the Local Government Association, and I'm rising to speak as the first member of the Green Group in your Lordship's House speaking. So I do have to note that in the other place, the Green MPs voted against this bill at third reading. That was not because they didn't think there were good elements in it, but there is so much damage being done to nature and hence, as many noble lords have said, to human health and well-being, to the state of the nation, that they could not support the progress of the bill. So I thought it was important to set out that position that we start from. And I think in the Noble Lord the Minister's introductory speech, we heard a couple of the central misconceptions that underpin the reasons why the government's approach, both more generally in this bill, is simply not going to work, is going to be counterproductive. The Noble Lord spoke with some glee about new roads. Well, we know that new roads simply create new traffic. You cannot build your way out of traffic jams. All you do is create more traffic jams. And the Noble Lord spoke about safe and decent homes that this bill was supposed to be going to deliver. Well, as the Noble Lord Crisp just said, and many others have said, what our large handful of mass house builders are building is anything but that. And if people haven't seen it, I'd point them to the article in the New Statesman just this month about some of the absolutely awful and incredibly expensive homes that have been built in the Prime Minister's own constituency that the owners are not being able to get sorted out. And I think I'm picking up points made by the Noble Lady Baroness Willis of Somerton and many others. The health of nature is the health of human beings, we human animals living on this fragile planet in this terribly nature-depleted country. Speaking up for nature is speaking up for humans. Even as the Noble Lord Crisp just said, if we're going to have a healthy economy, we need healthy humans. We are speaking up for the economy, ultimately. And this bill is disastrous for nature. I go to Wildlife and Countryside Link, but there are many, many briefings pointing out how it undermines vital legal protections for nature. It is an environmentally regressive bill that reduces the level of environmental protection provided by existing law. Now, I could take the rest of my time doing simply a very long list of all the issues that I want to address, but that would be a little bit dull, so I'm going to focus on a couple of points that I think help illustrate my general point that nature and human well-being are tied together. We need to take a One Health approach to this bill. Now, I point to a briefing from the Sustainable Nitrogen Alliance, which says the proposed environmental delivery plans will be insufficient to tackle nitrogen overloading. We need an integrated approach to nitrogen pollution that addresses, in addition to development, the impacts of intensive agriculture and wastewater, and the risk of pollution swapping. And coming back to my point about health, I go to the UNEP, which notes that ammonia emissions, as well as contributing to climate change, are an important driver of fine particulate matter pollution, which reduces air quality and has increasing adverse effects on human health. Now, I actually spent last weekend with my in my leisure times 2 days course with the Field Studies Council Introduction to Lichens. And I can highly recommend that to noble lords, and any noble lords who stand too still in the dining room may find themselves bailed up by me to talk about that more. But it was really striking how much the tutor kept saying, well, you won't find this wonderful species or that wonderful species here. Everything is covered in nitrogen, and that's what our country is like. And that's a human health issue as well as an issue for lichens. Now, I do just want to very briefly mention, in the other place, the MP Sarah Champion talked about right to grow. That's really crucial for human health, and also allotments and similar spaces are great for nature as well. I'm going to mention the issue of landfill, historic and current, and the human health impacts of that. and Zane's Law is something Noble Lords will hear more from me on. But I'm just going to finally mention something that might be able to be cleaned up now before we get to that point. And the Badger Trust points out that in Schedule 6 there are amendments that significantly undermine protection for badgers without in any way improving the situation for house builders. I hope that we might be able to clean that up before we get to committee stage so we won't have to dig through that detail.